All right, everyone. Trump has now decided that we should end our involvement in the nation of Syria and go no further. What's planned is that the Turks, which are a member of NATO, and this matters, and none of these neocons seem to comprehend this, or they do, but they ignore this fact. Turkey is planning to wipe out some of the communist militias in northern Syria that call themselves simply Kurdish militias. Again, I'm going to repeat that because this does matter. Communist militias. There are people that want us to continue funding and arming them against Turkey at the moment. These are your Ben Shapiro neocons and the liberals. It's funny to see a bunch of leftists rambling about wanting to maintain a U.S. military presence and be an arms dealer to this particular organization that's antagonistic towards a NATO member. It's hilarious to see because I'm watching Bernie Sanders, of all people, try to wiggle himself into a pretzel explaining why we should not be vacating the region. I'm seeing this same tired line, like it's obvious that this was astroturfed for some of these people, saying we're betraying an ally. And you try to point out the reality, which is that the Kurds were fighting alongside U.S. troops because of ISIS, and for no other reason. ISIS has been pretty much wiped out of Syria, largely because of Assad, not because of the efforts of the U.S. Assad has wiped the floor with them because of all of the infighting in the area, causing his enemies to wreak havoc on one another, allowing Assad to rebuild. Also, Russian air support and Iranian involvement certainly helped. By the way, when people drag in the more Russia conspiracy thing, no, I don't care if Russia and Iran have influence in Syria because they did anyway. It's no change. It means absolutely nothing to me. They had involvement in Syria for a very long time, and somehow this never actually affected my life because it happens over in the Middle East. I don't care. I'm tired of endless war. We should never have been in Syria in the first place because there never should have been an ISIS in Syria in the first place. U.S. interventionist foreign policy, in part, not completely, but in part, played a role in prolonging the civil war that was occurring there among ragtag groups of Sharia law lovers, essentially, who wanted to overthrow a dictatorial regime, yes, fully admitted, but an authoritarian one under Assad. Technically democracy, but it's democracy in name only, a dino regime, you could call it, but one that was secular. One that did not butcher the Yazidi. And shame on anybody, by the way, trying to grandstand and ramble about ethnic cleansing. You said, I'm assuming, nothing about the Yazidi when that was happening, which never would have happened. The majority of the Yazidi population there either in exile or killed, or in some cases enslaved and sent off to Libya or wherever to go and get sold to some rich European bureaucrat. That wouldn't have happened if we hadn't prolonged the civil war in Syria in the first place. We've made no allies within the region. We've been playing world police for too long in the Middle East. Iraq right now is having problems too. There are protests there also. How long, when these people say, well, don't leave until things are stable, how long, how much money, how many lives have to be lost before you deem it stable? And then when we do leave, like in Iraq, which you said, oh, we've measured, we drew down our troops in a measured manner, it was great, and the neocons had no problem with it. Now Iraq looks like it's imploding again. So should we stay in Syria for another 10 years? 20 years? Should we go and police every corner in the entire world just to be sure? Some of these neocons are like, well, no, but we've got to safeguard the region because in our absence, if we trust other people to police the area, terrorists will come and get us. What are you talking about, dude? How many terrorist attacks are there actually concurrent with how much effort we're expending? It's a way of grinding our economy down. It's a great strategy. The Viet Cong employed it successfully. It's just a modified strategy used by them and used by Al-Qaeda anyway. We're not going to be able to win this struggle because there is no victory. You've got to understand, this kind of war doesn't have a victory. War should be the last resort. I argue, first use diplomacy, but there are people acting like it is sane to do the following. They're saying that because we fought alongside another group of people, communists, by the way, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, that was the only reason we were fighting alongside these militias. And it always pissed the Turks off because they've got their own separatist Kurdish movement within Turkey, which is semi-different, but, kind of linked cross-border. There's a little bit of muddy waters there. You're saying it's a good idea to take weapons and money and funnel them to a group that is considered a terrorist organization of extremists by a fellow NATO ally, while that NATO ally is engaged with them. So we're supposed to do this without endangering Turkey's role in NATO. Turkey literally hosts U.S. nuclear systems. There are nuclear weapons hosted in Turkey. They control the Bosphorus. Now, I understand that there are a lot of people in the U.S., especially who hate Erdogan, and Erdogan is not a very likable guy. He's a dictatorial, tyrannical figure as well. Turkey's sliding backwards in every diplomatic measure. They've been whining and dining, playing middleman with the Russians. I understand all of these things. Largely, that wouldn't be happening if it weren't for U.S. policy within the region, though. So, I can't even blame them. The rise of Erdoganism is prefaced in part on U.S. foreign policy being bad. Probably wouldn't have happened if we had made better decisions. We have to own up to that fact. But we can't sit there and funnel weapons into the region like Bernie Sanders and Yang and all these other cretins apparently want and expect there to be no repercussions. At the end of the day, I would rather have an alliance with Turkey than with a bunch of Kurds that are likely to get wiped out by the former. When the former is already in NATO, already a military ally, already hosting U.S. nuclear systems, and the Kurds have no legitimate claim to be operating there anyway. The idea of this Kurdistani state, separatist movement, the idea of it just is hilarious to me. There's no state there. It's a non-state actor. If you actually want Donald Trump to defend the Kurds, I don't know exactly how you expect him to do that without war against a fellow NATO ally. Giving them weapons and money is not going to work. Turkey has too many resources and too much manpower for that to be a problem for them to overcome. And then there'll be an enemy. What happens when Turkey falls under the Russian umbrella? What happens when they end up partnering with the Iranians? You're looking at a World War III sort of style situation in the Middle East of our own making. No thanks. I think that our troops should probably just leave the region. What are they accomplishing? We hold a base or two and an airstrip and we call it victory. We should have been partnering with Assad to wipe out ISIS. Instead, we partnered with the Kurds. But ISIS is now gone. It's time to realize the situation there is no longer the same. Stability is being restored, not by a U.S. ally, but it's being restored. Let's leave. Mission accomplished, insofar as you can ever accomplish a mission where the entire goal is endless war anyway. These neocons don't want to leave because they're making a lot of money. And it gives them something to crow about as well. Here's another thing that I pointed out the other day in closing here. Some of these same people were constantly clamoring, including especially all of these people on the left, the Democrats right now jumping down Trump's throat. Bernie Sanders, Yang, all these others. They all wanted an end to our involvement in the Middle East. Not just Syria, but in general in this region. They always talk a big game about how wonderful it would be to end war, love beads and meditation, we need better foreign policy, oh, how bad things have been since Bush. They always talk about these things. But when it comes down to Trump actually attempting to solve the problem, look what happens. Oh, no. No. Don't solve the problem. No. Stay there. It's not time yet. No. We just want another 10 years to talk about it. This is how government works. They want to be able to form a committee and a subcommittee and talk about it for 10 years while real people die and real money is expended, because to them, the lives don't matter. Bernie Sanders doesn't care if 1,000 people die. Andrew Yang doesn't care if $1 trillion is spent on drone strikes. It's shit to them. They don't have to deal with the repercussions because they're part of that privileged class of political insiders. They want to talk about the problem and maintain the problem there so they can use it to expand their power and their authoritarianism and dick away their time pretending that there's no issue to actually be solved. This is the same thing as on the U.S. border. The Democrats and Republicans for years and years and years rambled about the need to solve our border problem, to solve the immigration crisis, to solve for illegal migrations across the Mexican border into the United States. They talked and fired off bill after bill after bill that didn't work or didn't even get passed, and they discussed it endlessly, and nothing at the end of the day was done. Then Trump came along. He said, oh, well, here's the money, here's the land. What are we waiting for, dudes? We've got the votes, we got the money, we've got the will of the people, let's build the wall. Oh my God, no, because we've got this to discuss first, and this civil rights problem, and that human rights problem, and this person, look at this crying refugee orphan over here. And they're doing the same thing on Syria. They're saying, well, he's cutting and running. It's going to be the mistakes of the past. It'll cause terrorist attacks. No, it's not. What are you talking about? Assad's restoring order. Our presence in the area arguably just exacerbates the situation. It's not solving anything. All we're doing is causing death and the degeneration of diplomatic relations with one of our major NATO allies. It makes no sense. And by the way, do people say, well, Turkey is acting like a free agent. They're in NATO, but they're ignoring NATO's dictates. Like I fucking care. Well, right now I'm here in the Netherlands. I'm an American. I live far, far away from Syria and Turkey. I just can't be commanded enough to fucking care. It's not my problem. It is impossible for the United States to turn the world into a utopia where everyone gets along, sings Kumbaya, and doesn't kill each other. You're looking at a region of the world where there has been sectarian violence because of trade lines mainly for thousands and thousands of years. It doesn't matter what religion is present. It doesn't matter what civilization happens to be dominant at the time. It doesn't matter what weather they're having. It doesn't matter. None of it does. There will be fighting continuously. People fight over resources. People fight over travel. People fight over some gold mine. People like to fight over stupid shit. It's going to keep happening. At the very least, let's not antagonize a nation we're already allied with a significant regional military capability, hosting U.S. nuclear weapon systems. Let's back them or back off and not get further involved with commie militias. I noticed that all of these so-called conservatives are very liberal with their application of U.S. taxpayer money and blowing people up over in Syria. Oh, they love it. They want U.S. troops to be there in hopes that the U.S. troops get attacked so they can blame Assad and pour more resources into the region to keep it destabilized. That's what I have a sneaking suspicion people like Ben Shapiro actually want. Well, screw them. Enough is enough. We, in part, elected Trump to be a non-interventionist. That's exactly what he's doing. And to see people who supported him on that say, oh, no, but not on this war, I'm not a non-interventionist. There, it's evil Assad because he's a Putin puppet. Again, I don't know what drugs you're on, but, front them to other people because they must be pretty damn good. That's about all. Peace out.